Hello everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zheng. You may have already read the news about the protests in several cities in China yesterday. As many of the participants were elderly retirees with gray or white hair, people call this white hair revolution. Today, I will talk about some shocking figures and facts behind this revolution, how it will affect the CCP, as well as a little bit about the COVID situation in the CCP army. On February 15th, large-scale protests broke out in Wuhan, Dalian City, and Anshan City in China. Retirees protested against the cuts to their medical benefits. In Wuhan, this was the second time that those retirees took to the street, and again, this was the largest one since the 1989 Tiananmen Square movement. Let's first look at some aerial footage. Let's watch another one shot from the ground. Ironically, these protesters were singing the CCP's famous song, The International. Although this is an issue about their health insurance, people did start to shout political slogans. Watch this. Also, among all this sort of chaos, one man did shout clearly, "Down with the reactionary government." According to social media posts, the CCP tried to block people from going out to attend the protest. A lot of policemen were deployed to the site, and some protesters were beaten up and arrested. Okay, so on the same day, a similar protest also happened in Dalian City in Liaoning Province in northeast China. So this one is from Dalian City in Liaoning Province, and this film same Okay, that is from Dalian City. And the next one is from Anshan City in Liaoning Province. The CCP dispatched a large number of police and road control vehicles to suppress retirees of the Anshan Iron and Steel Group who went to the government building to protest against the health insurance cuts. Okay, that's from Anshan City in Liaoning Province. It was reported that more than 20,000 people participated in the protest in Wuhan City. Some say there were as many as 50,000. The police managed to clear the site after 3 p.m., and as many as 80,000 police were deployed. Does anyone still remember this scene? It was the protest in Wuhan on February 8th. We reported about this before. You know what? Turns out the CCP actually used artificial rain to prevent people from taking to the street to protest on that day. Why did similar protests suddenly break out in 3 cities? Because the so-called health insurance reform is happening throughout China. Virtually every retiree is affected. Now, look at this. This post was sent by someone who works within the CCP system. He or she said after the protests happened in Wuhan, he or she used their internal database to check some numbers and was utterly shocked by the numbers. He or she said the so-called Central Health Care Committee, which takes care of less than 1,000 national-level CCP leaders, received 16.48 billion yuan from the central government last year. At the same time, Hubei province, with a population of 60 million people, only got 5.16 billion yuan. By the way, Wuhan City is the capital city of Hubei province. So let's suppose that there are 1,000 people whose medical bills are paid by the Central Healthcare Committee. Then one of them received 16.48 million yuan, or about 2.4 million US dollars. As for the 60 million people in Hubei province, each of them received only 86 yuan, or about $12. So one national level CCP leader got 191.64 2,000 times more than an ordinary Chinese. Now, here are some other figures released by the CCP itself many years ago. So it says in 2004, the total expenditure of 12 retired CCP senior cadres was as much as 326 million yuan. And the 12 retired CCP senior cadres included members of the Standing Committee of the Central Political Bureau, the chairman of the National People's Congress, the vice chairman of the State Council, and the vice chairman of the Advisory Commission of the Central Committee of the CCP, etc. So on average, each of them cost 27.25 million yuan, or about $4 million. For the 105 level 1 retired CCP officials, their total expenditure was 671 million yuan, an average of more than 6.3 million yuan per person. As for the 5,537 retired cadres at the provincial and ministerial levels, each of them could have 3 to 5 staff members, and these cadres spent 700,000 to 6 million yuan per person per year. For example, Wang Daohan, who was the president of the Association for Relations Across the Taiwan Straits then, spent 9.47 million yuan in 2004, 5 million yuan of that was his medical expenses. And the budget and the expenditure budget for each member of the Standing Committee of the CCP's Politburo in office exceeded 50 million yuan. Surprised? The CCP has been saying that in a socialist or communist society, everyone enjoys an equal amount of everything. But the reality is, after eliminating all the so-called exploiting classes, the CCP leaders, as the ones who created this happy and equal society for everyone, became the new privileged class. I remember when I was a child, I often heard the term 18级干部 in Chinese, which means level 18 officials. At that time, CCP officials were divided into 18 different levels, and there were very detailed rules about what kind of different privileges that different level officials could enjoy. Now they have even more levels, as many as 27. So what one official enjoys can be very different depending on their levels. What is interesting is the CCP has somehow convinced the Chinese people that high-level CCP officials do have the right to enjoy more privileges, as they had made bigger contributions, and ordinary Chinese people own them, should thank them and be grateful. After I tweeted about the inequality in CCP China, someone left such a comment, quote, "The whole concept behind Marxism was that classism is eliminated. The proletariat murders the bourgeoisie and takes their property. But the followers of Marxism and socialism don't understand that when they achieve this, they've effectively created a new class structure," unquote. I totally agree with this, as that is what happened in China. When we read all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, a quote from George Orwell's Animal Farm, we may think it is just a novel, but what is happening in China now is far worse than what Orwell described. Apart from the inequality, the total amount of water in the pool has also greatly reduced. It was reported that local governments across China spent at least 352 billion yuan, or about 51.6 billion US dollars last year to maintain the insane zero COVID policy. On top of that, economic growth is slowing. The real estate market is not doing well, so the financial crisis of the local government is deepening. Recently, a piece of news has sparked a lot of public attention and debate in China. This news says in several cities in China, including Beijing, Hangzhou, Ningbo, and Nanning, the banks have raised the maximum age to apply for home loans from 70 to 80. This means initially, if you apply for a 30-year home loan, you need to be less than 40 years old to get one, as you would be 70 years old when you pay off your mortgage. But now, as long as you are not older than 50, you can get a 30-year home loan. What does this mean? It shows how desperate both the bank system and the real estate developers are. People not only don't buy new houses anymore, but also want to pay off their mortgage ahead of time, either because their interest rates are too high or they lack other good investment opportunities. But how can the banks survive if nobody is paying the mortgage interest anymore? They can't find enough new borrowers. So they are really desperate. That's how bad the financial situations are in China. How will all the protests and worsening financial situation affect the CCP? I would say very, very badly. You know, the CCP has been saying to the Chinese people the biggest human right is the right to survive, to have enough food in your stomach. Somehow, many Chinese people have been brainwashed into believing this logic. So they have virtually given away all their other rights to exchange the one right in China to make money and to have enough food to survive. Now, if this last right is also going to be taken away, will the people still keep silent? Also, the CCP has been using its famous 5% versus 95% tactic to maintain stability, which means every time the CCP only targets 5% of the population and turns the rest 95% against the 5%. But this time, the people who are going to be affected by the CCP's health insurance cuts and other financial crises are much more than 5%. If the majority of the people are affected, the CCP won't have enough police to suppress all these people if they choose to stand up. That's why some people are predicting that the end of the CCP is not far away. Now, let's move to our last topic today, COVID in the CCP army. Several days ago, on February 8th, the PLA's Central Military Commission organs, including the Training Management Department and the Logistics Security Department, issued military training guidance after COVID infection. The guidance says the human body functions and immune functions of personnel of personnel infected with COVID-19 are still in a state of disorder at the early stage of recovery, and the resumption of military training should not be rushed. For heavy and critical cases that are cured and recovered, as well as those recovered with underlying diseases, military training needs to be gradually resumed under the guidance of a military doctor. The guidance concludes after recovering from COVID, a good follow up job should be ensured with military training. Heart rate, blood oxygen, and other relevant body function indicators should be closely monitored. And when symptoms such as chest pain, breathing difficulties, and other conditions emerge, training should be immediately stopped and related medical treatment should be offered, and participants in the training should be promptly sent to medical institutions for consultation and treatment. The CCP always has this pattern in terms of its policy guidance or propaganda. When it says we need to strengthen this or that, it must be that serious problems have already appeared in this area. So when the CCP issued this kind of guidance, we know that 1. COVID infection in the army must be widespread and serious. Currently, there is 2.3 million active duty military personnel in the PLA. Based on the 80% infection rate of the general public, the number of infected soldiers in the military could be about 1.84 million. Number 2, there could be many severe cases in the army too, as the guidance also offers instructions as to how to resume training after having severe symptoms. Number 3, it was reported that infected people could suddenly die if they participate in physical training. In January, Fox News reported that heart attacks in European athletes were occurring 29 times a year before the pandemic, and more than 1,500 times after the pandemic, with 2/3 of those cases resulting in death, and all of them were young athletes. So sudden deaths could have occurred among PLA soldiers too. Number 4, public reports show that a number of retired PLA generals died recently. I will skip reading the long list of them. Let's only check this. These are 5 ambiguities of high-level CCP officials or PLA generals published in the People's Daily on February 3rd. 3 of them are PLA-related, including Wang Hao, former political committee member of the National University of Defense Technology, Li Jin, former deputy chief of general staff of PLA, Yu Guichen, former member of the party group of China National Armament Industry Corporation. There's nothing strange about the People's Daily publishing obituaries of high-level CCP officials or PLA generals. The problem is these people either died in January or December last year. Why did the CCP only publish their obituaries more than 1 month after their deaths? This shows that the CCP wants to delay the news to cover up the fact that too many have died, or to dilute the impact that many high-ranking officials are dying. Some people ask me, what is the COVID situation in China is now? Well, as the CCP doesn't tell us much, we really don't know. However, it did report today that 14 local new mutant cases were identified in China since December, including one case of the new subvariant XBB 1.5. Other than that, I've seen several social media posts showing that hospitals in China are still very crowded, such as this one shot on February 6 inside the first Hospital of China Medical University in Shenyang City, Liaoning Province. As far as I believe, although the first wave of infection and death is over, no one can guarantee that the second and third waves won't come. Well, that's all for today. I noticed that YouTube has been unsubscribing people for me. So please check once in a while whether you are still subscribed to my channel. If you haven't subscribed yet, please make sure you do so. Also, if you could, please go to my website at jenniferzengblog.com, jenniferzengblog.com to sign up for a membership or make a donation to support my truth-telling efforts. Thank you. See you.